When I proposed to Megan, I thought I was the luckiest man alive. We had been together for 3 years, and they were good years. I'm a private person by nature. I run a logistics company that I built from the ground up. It's demanding work, but it's mine, and it's been successful. Megan was the opposite. She was bright, social, and loved being the center of attention. I thought we balanced each other out. She brought the sparkle, and I provided the foundation. The problems started, as they often do, with the wedding planning. Suddenly, our life wasn't about us anymore. It was about the image of us. The wedding wasn't a celebration of our commitment. It was a production, and Megan was the star, director, and producer. Her family, particularly her father, Richard, and her maid of honor, a woman named Olivia, were her eager supporting cast. They come from old money, the kind of people who have never had to worry about a bill in their lives. They tolerated me because I made Megan happy and, more importantly, because I could afford the lifestyle she wanted. I went along with it because I loved her. I paid the deposits on the venue, a ridiculously grand place called the Ashford Estate. I signed the checks for the caterer, the band, the florist. The budget ballooned, but every time I tried to suggest a more reasonable option, Megan would pout and say, "But this is my one special day. Don't you want it to be perfect?" Her father would just smile that smug smile of his and say, "Let the girl have what she wants, son. It's important to keep her happy." The message was clear. My role was to provide, not to participate. The breaking point came at our engagement party. It was a lavish affair at a downtown hotel, filled with her family and friends. My guest list was small, just my parents, my brother, and a few close friends. We were all standing together as Megan held court, laughing and showing off her ring. Richard, her father, raised his glass for a toast. "To my beautiful daughter," he said, beaming. "And to Liam, a man who is very, very lucky to have her." Everyone cheered. Then Olivia, the maid of honor, chimed in. "He sure is. Megan, are you getting nervous for the big day?" Megan took a sip of her champagne, looked over at me with a playful but cold glint in her eye, and said the words that would change the course of both our lives. "Nervous? Please? He'll be lucky if I even show up to the wedding." The room erupted in laughter. Her friends, her family, they all thought it was the funniest thing they had ever heard. It wasn't a joke, though. It was a statement of power. It was a public declaration of my status in her life. I was the disposable one, the one who should be grateful for her presence. My own family looked horrified. My mother's face fell. But I didn't get angry. I didn't cause a scene. As their laughter echoed around me, something inside me went perfectly still and silent. The hurt was there, but it was quickly replaced by a cold, hard clarity. This wasn't a partnership. This was a performance, and I was just a prop. So I did the only thing I could do. I smiled. I raised my glass, looked directly at her, and said, "To the bride, may she get everything she deserves." They all cheered again, completely oblivious to the double meaning. They thought I was playing along. They had no idea that I had just made a promise to myself. She would, indeed, get exactly what she deserved. The wedding she had been planning for a year was now a ghost. A new plan was already forming in my mind, a plan where her own words would become her reality. Update 1. The 2 months between the engagement party and the wedding were a masterclass in deception, and I was the star student. I played the part of the devoted, slightly clueless fiancé to perfection. I agreed to every extravagant demand, nodded along to every seating chart drama, and signed every check without question. Megan and her family mistook my compliance for weakness. They had no idea I was building a fortress while they were busy decorating a stage. My first move was a quiet audit of our wedding expenses. I sat down with all the contracts and invoices. As I suspected, nearly 80% of the non-refundable deposits had been paid from my personal bank account. The Ashford Estate, the 10-piece band, the celebrity photographer, all of it was tied to me. This was my primary leverage. The core of my plan was simple. Megan had joked that I would be lucky if she showed up. I was going to create a wedding where her attendance was entirely irrelevant. I was going to split the event in two, creating a phantom wedding for her and a real celebration for the people who actually mattered. I hired a second wedding planner, a discreet professional named Clara, and told her the entire story. She was initially shocked, but the strategic challenge intrigued her. Our first task was creating a second identity for the wedding. While Megan, her family, and her entire guest list continued to plan for the grand affair at the Ashford estate, Clara and I were securing a different venue for the same date. We chose a beautiful, understated vineyard about an hour away, a place with real class instead of just flashy grandeur. Next came the information war. We designed 2 sets of everything. The official wedding website, the one Megan checked daily, remained unchanged, detailing the lavish event at the Ashford. But we built a second, private website for the vineyard celebration. The guest list was the most critical part. I went through it line by line. Every single one of Megan's friends and the majority of her family were on the Ashford list. My family, my friends, and a handful of her relatives, an aunt and a couple of cousins who had always been kind and genuine to me, were on the vineyard list. We sent out 2 sets of invitations. They looked nearly identical, with the same high-end paper and calligraphy. The only difference was the venue address and the details on the enclosed card. For the vineyard guests, the card included a note about the celebration being an unplugged event, asking them to refrain from posting on social media until the following day. This was crucial to prevent any information from leaking out. Managing the vendors was the most complex piece of the puzzle. I contacted the caterer, the band, and the florist. I told them there had been a last-minute, unavoidable logistical issue with the Ashford estate and that we were moving the event to the vineyard. I offered to pay a significant inconvenience fee to each of them for the change of plans. Money talks, and they all readily agreed, signing updated contracts with the new location. They were instructed to direct any and all future communications exclusively through me and Clara. But what about the Ashford estate? Canceling would mean losing the massive deposit. I wasn't going to let that happen. Instead, I called the event manager at Ashford and told her we were drastically scaling back our plans. I spun a story about a family emergency requiring us to reallocate our budget. I told her we would no longer need the full catering service, the band stage, or the elaborate floral arrangements. Instead, we would just need the main hall for a simple cocktail reception, a bar, some appetizers, and a sound system for a playlist. The manager was disappointed but accommodating. The contract was amended. So, on the morning of the wedding, 2 separate realities were set to unfold. In one reality, Megan was preparing for her dream wedding, a massive, opulent event where she would be the queen. In the other, I was preparing for a celebration of my own, surrounded by people I loved and respected. The day before the wedding, I did one final thing. I had a large, professionally printed sign delivered to a trusted friend who lived near the Ashford estate. He was instructed to have it set up in the grand entrance hall at precisely 4 p.m. the next day. That evening, Megan was giddy with excitement. She kissed me and said, "Tomorrow is going to be the best day of my life. Are you ready to be the luckiest man in the world?" "I'm ready for a day I'll never forget," I replied, looking her straight in the eye. She smiled, completely missing the cold resolve behind my words. She thought she was the one in control. She thought the joke was on me. She had no idea that the punchline was just hours away, and she was it. Update 2. The morning of the wedding was surreal. I woke up early and went for a run, a sense of calm washing over me. There was no nervousness, no anxiety, just focus. I sent Megan a simple text, "Can't wait to see you at the altar. Today is the start of everything." She replied with a string of heart emojis. My groomsmen, who were all in on the plan, met me at my hotel suite. There was no talk of the wedding. We just played cards, had a good lunch, and talked about old times. Around 2 p.m., we got dressed and headed out. Not to the Ashford estate, but to the vineyard. Meanwhile, I was getting updates from Clara, my planner. Megan's morning was a flurry of activity. Hair, makeup, photographers, bridesmaids, the whole production. She was posting constantly on social media, behind-the-scenes shots of her getting ready, with captions like, "The Final Countdown," and "Future Mrs. Hamilton." She was building the narrative, creating the online spectacle she had always dreamed of. At the vineyard, our guests began to arrive. My parents, my brother, my closest friends, they were greeted with champagne and a stunning view. The atmosphere was relaxed and joyful. It felt real. It felt like a celebration, not a performance. Back at the Ashford estate, a different scene was unfolding. Megan, her bridesmaids, and her parents arrived in a fleet of limousines at 4:30 p.m., ready for the grand entrance. Her 200 guests were already starting to trickle into the grand hall. But instead of the opulent decor they were expecting, they found a sparsely decorated room. A single bar was set up at one end, and a few waiters were circulating with trays of simple appetizers. A playlist of generic pop music was playing softly through a pair of speakers. And in the center of the entrance hall, on a large easel, was the sign I had arranged. It was elegant, printed in the same script as our invitations. It read, "Welcome to Megan's wedding shower. It seems there has been a misunderstanding. Today is not a wedding. It is a celebration of Megan, a woman who knows what she wants." In her own words, at her engagement party, her fiancé would be lucky if she even showed up. As it turns out, he is indeed a very lucky man. Please enjoy the cocktails and appetizers. They are a gift from him. Clara had a contact on the waitstaff at Ashford who was feeding her live updates. The initial reaction was confusion. Guests were milling around, whispering, looking for me and my family. Megan, upon seeing the sign, apparently froze. Her mother read it and let out a small shriek. Her father Richard read it and his face turned a deep, furious red. Megan started frantically calling my phone. It went straight to a voicemail I had set up that morning. The message was simple: "You have reached Liam. I am currently unavailable as I am celebrating a very special day with my loved ones. If you are calling from the Ashford estate, please enjoy the party. You've earned it." Chaos erupted. Her guests, realizing they were part of a public humiliation, started to leave in droves. Richard was reportedly screaming at the Ashford event manager, who calmly presented him with the amended contract showing the scaled-back arrangements. The celebrity photographer, realizing there was no wedding to shoot, packed up his gear and demanded to know who was paying his day rate. While her world was imploding, I was standing in front of my own guests at the vineyard. I took a microphone and the crowd grew quiet. "Welcome everyone," I began. "I know you all came here today expecting a wedding, but plans have changed. 3 months ago, at my engagement party, my then fiancée made a joke. She said that I would be lucky if she even showed up to our wedding, and it made me realize something. She was right. I am lucky. I'm lucky to have realized that I deserve a partner who values and respects me. I'm lucky to be surrounded by people who genuinely love and support me, all of you." I raised my glass. So today is not a wedding. It's a celebration. It's a celebration of honesty, of self-respect, and of new beginnings. The food is delicious, the band is fantastic, and the bar is open. Thank you all for being here with me, to new beginnings. The vineyard erupted in cheers. It was the most honest, joyful moment of my life. The rest of the evening was incredible. We ate, we drank, we danced. My friends and family surrounded me with so much love and support. There was no pretense, no performance, just a real party. My phone was turned off, but Clara was still getting updates. Megan had a complete meltdown in the lobby of the Ashford. Her father had to essentially carry her out. Olivia, the maid of honor, was reportedly in tears, not for Megan, but because her meticulously planned social media posts for the day were now ruined. The story was already starting to spread. The few guests who had remained at Ashford were texting and calling everyone they knew. The joke had become the punchline, and Megan was at the center of it. She wanted to be the star of the show, and now she was, just not in the way she had ever imagined. Final update. The fallout from what our friends now call the wedding that wasn't was swift and spectacular. I kept my phone off for a full 24 hours, enjoying a quiet day of recovery with my family at the vineyard. When I finally turned it back on, it was a digital war zone. Hundreds of missed calls and texts from Megan, her family, and her friends. The messages ranged from furious threats to tearful, pleading apologies. I read none of them. I simply handed my phone to my lawyer and had him handle all future communications. The financial consequences hit Megan and her family hard. Her father, Richard, had tried to dispute the charges for the scaled-back event at the Ashford estate, but the amended contract I had signed was legally solid. He was on the hook for the bar tab and the staffing costs. The real pain, however, came from the vendors they had hired personally. The custom dress she had ordered, the hair and makeup team for 10 bridesmaids, the limousines. All of those contracts were in her name, and the vendors demanded payment in full. My lawyer's first official act was to send a formal letter to Richard. It was a simple accounting of the wedding expenses. It showed the massive deposits I had paid for the original, lavish event, all of which were now forfeited. It then presented Richard with a bill for Megan's share of the engagement party and a few other joint wedding expenses she had put on a shared credit card that I had since closed. It was a clear message. The Bank of Liam was permanently closed. The social humiliation was, by all accounts, far worse. The story became local legend. Megan, who had cultivated an image of being a perfect, sought-after socialite, was now a cautionary tale. Her joke from the engagement party was repeated everywhere. She became the woman who was so arrogant she literally didn't show up to her own wedding, only to find out there wasn't one. Many of her friends, especially the ones who had been publicly embarrassed at the Ashford, distanced themselves from her. Her social circle, which she valued above all else, crumbled. Olivia, the maid of honor, was particularly devastated. Her reputation as a social influencer took a massive hit. She was seen as part of the joke, part of the mean-spirited clique that had been publicly humbled. Her online brand, which was built on being at exclusive events, was now associated with the most exclusive event of the year, the one she wasn't actually invited to. About 2 weeks after the event, I received a package at my office. It was from Megan's aunt, one of the few relatives I had invited to the vineyard. Inside was a beautiful handwritten card. It said, "Liam, I am so sorry for my family's behavior. What you did took incredible courage. You deserve a lifetime of happiness with someone who truly sees you. Thank you for including me in your beautiful celebration of self-worth." It was a small gesture, but it meant the world to me. I did eventually agree to meet with Megan, one final time. We met at a neutral coffee shop. She looked tired and small, the arrogance completely gone. She tried to apologize, to explain that it was just a joke, that she had gotten carried away with the wedding planning. I listened patiently. When she was finished, I just shook my head. It wasn't just a joke, Megan. It was the truth. It was how you saw me. It was how you all saw me. I was just the guy paying for the party. You didn't respect me. And a marriage without respect is just a business transaction, and it was a bad deal for me. She asked what she could do to fix it. "Nothing," I said. "You can't fix this. All you can do is learn from it. You wanted to be the center of attention on your wedding day. You wanted everyone to be talking about you. And they did. You got exactly what you wanted." I stood up, wished her well, and walked away. That was the last time I ever spoke to her. I heard through the grapevine that she and her father are no longer speaking. He blames her for the public embarrassment and the financial loss. She has since moved out of the city to live with a relative, trying to escape the story that now defines her. As for me, I'm doing better than ever. The celebration at the vineyard wasn't an ending, it was a beginning. It was a declaration of my own value. I spent a lot of money on a wedding that never happened, but I consider it the best investment I've ever made. I paid for a very expensive lesson, but the freedom and self-respect I gained are priceless. I learned that the right partner doesn't make you feel lucky to be with them. They make you feel lucky to be yourself. And that's a truth worth celebrating.